You guys are a lot of fun, and I appreciate being invited and being a guest here. So hopefully a little information here that maybe you haven't heard before. I am Kat Riegel and I'm an animal communicator. This means that I work with animals and I try to help people have a better connection to their pets. So using telepathy, I'm able to work with animals, find out what they're thinking, ask questions that their owners might have, and relay that, essentially being the voice for the animal during our talks when we talk with them. And I do slip into people pronouns for our animals because I do get into their thoughts. I'm in their head. They feel more like me than more like something distant. So if you hear me using people pronouns, it's just how I think of the animals when I'm working with them. Tonight, what I had kind of wanted to do was talk a little bit more about sometimes our animals need to feel like they have a purpose. There's a lot of times where we have an animal, a pet in our lives, and it's like we really want them to be there, but the animal wants a little bit more than just being something that's kind of social. And so one of the things that I wanted to talk about was ways to assign jobs to our animals. And sometimes assigning a job could be as simple as figuring out what the animal might like to do. Sometimes it's helping to redirect a behavior. So if you have an animal who doesn't like to be alone, who you have to go to work and your dog is sitting there all day home alone, instead of staring at the walls, we can ask the dog to do something that makes them feel like, okay, I can do this. I have a purpose. I'll be waiting for my person to come home, but while my person's away, I can do whatever that job is. And I find it also helps animals who are anxious or animals who have come out of a rescue situation. A lot of times, out of a rescue situation, an animal may feel a little hopeless. And it sounds sometimes, I think, odd to say an animal can be hopeless, but if they're not really sure what's going to happen to them, if they started out in a situation where they were maybe part of a hoarding situation. People can go into all kinds of situations where they have good intentions and they're like, oh, I love cats. I'm going to collect cats. And all of a sudden they have 30 cats and just, like conditions aren't really good for any of the cats, any of the people involved anymore. And then people try to rehome those cats. Sometimes they feel like, oh, I left a buddy behind. I don't know if I'm going to be in this situation. Is it my permanent space to be? And they can be a little nervous about that. So giving them a job helps them feel a little bit more relaxed, connected again, and again, giving a purpose. So some of the jobs that can come up for animals, for a dog that maybe barks a lot, this could be something where we're going to ask first. Whenever I talk with an animal, I always ask to make sure there's no underlying condition for health or something that they have a physical need for before we go into a job. And for a dog that barks a lot, maybe we can ask, okay, why do you want to bark? Why do you want to be very vocal? Your people tell me that it's disrupting to them, or some dogs can have a really like high pitched, shrill little bark. So if the bark goes off and people are like, "Ee," you kind of jump. You don't really want to be in that situation all the time. So we can ask the dog, why are you barking? Sometimes the dogs will tell me things like, oh, well, there's somebody coming. I want my people to know somebody's coming. So in that case, we might ask the dog to take on a job such as being a greeter or maybe being, I like to call it a receptionist. So I tell the people in those situations, if your dog barks a lot when the doorbell goes off, maybe you're going to have a delivery. You've ordered something, UPS is going to show up at the door. Let your dog know ahead of time and tell him, hey, Fritzy, UPS is going to be here sometime today. When UPS gets here, they're going to leave a package. You can bark once and let me know that UPS is here. But then after that, be quiet because I'll know that they're here and I'll come answer the door. So you're giving them what to watch for. You're telling them what you expect from them. And then they can sit there all day long at the door, maybe peeking out a window, watching for it. They see that big brown truck show up. They give that bark. And then you have to come out and you have to be like, oh, Fritzy, good job. Thank you for alerting me that they're here. Now sit back. I'm going to go get the package, and then you can let the dog play with the packaging, whatever else. Give them something as a reward. rewards could be a treat. They could be a fun time switching on those ears. It could be that you're going for a walk later. So anytime our animals have done a job that we've asked them to do, we need to reward them. Let's say you have a cat who likes to dig up your houseplants and you really like your houseplants, but you don't really like to have to put the plant back in the pot every night. You don't want to pack that dirt back in there. You don't want to have to vacuum a rug. So in that case, I would assign the job the cat I would assign the cat the job, sorry, of being maybe the gardener. And so part of his job is to watch the house plant and to make sure that nobody touches the house plant when they're not supposed to. It's okay for the human to water it. It's okay for the human to pick off a dead leaf sometime, but nobody's supposed to dig up that plant. Nobody's supposed to mess with it. And so we're asking the cat to be the gardener, the watcher of that plant. And then when you come home, if the plant is still in the pot, the cat hasn't dug anything up, then you can be like, oh, good job, Mittens. Here's a treat, you know. So cats can be food motivated like a dog can. They can also be very hands-on motivated. Maybe it means that they get 5 minutes of toy playing. The nice thing for any of our animals, any of the jobs that we assign them, when we give them that job and give them the reward, I've had a few people who've asked me, what's a reward? What does the animal care what they're doing? You know, I'm just happy if they didn't bark, they didn't dig up the plant. But think about it. We go to work, we have a job, we do something for somebody else, and we expect a payment of some sort. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's trade, but there's a payment, there's a reward for us involved. And it's a very similar thing. Your animal wants that reward. You have to figure out sometimes what that reward is. If they're not food motivated, sometimes it's that playtime, sometimes it's a walk, sometimes it's just hands on. Sometimes I had one cat tell me one time, I don't like the new kitten that they brought in. Could my reward please be that I get 5 minutes in a room without that kitten? And so, you know, we had to explain that. And the people were like, well, I thought they got along. I thought they wanted to play together. And I'm like, well, I said the kitten is still a lot of energy, and your cat feels that this is a lot of extra work to try to teach the kitten something. So I said, essentially, you've given your cat the task of teaching the kitten how to grow into being a cat. And it's helping, but you need to reward that cat. Give him 5 minutes in the bedroom with nobody else around. It's just 5 minutes. I also think that as people, we expect more. Our animals are pretty good at, this is what I want. This is how I've got it. Okay, I'm good. I'm done. People, we tend to be a little bit more involved. We think that, okay, I can't make a change in 5 minutes. This is something I'm going to have to work on. And we take a long time to process. Our animals can do it more quickly than that. So sometimes that 5 minute reward, that 5 minutes of playtime, would be like an hour for us of doing something. So it's, again, it's one-on-one attention. You've really focused on your animal. You've given them that reward. You've given them that time. And then they're like, okay, I'm cool. I'm gonna go have a snack and then take a nap, you know, and they're happy. They've gotten what they want out of the day. For us, you know, we get that paycheck and we're like grumbling, oh, we got to pay all the bills now. You know, our animals don't have to pay a bill necessarily, but we still want that reward. And we go out to dinner and we have a great dinner as our reward. So we get paid and a treat. Um, some of the other jobs that can come up, all kinds of things. You could have a person in your household who maybe is anxious about something. And so sometimes we've got just different things that happen within our day, within our lives, and people could be nervous all of the time. Some of our animals try to take those emotions from us. They don't want their person feeling nervous. So then they take on that behavior. And I've talked with people before who've had their animals who say, like, oh, they don't sit still. They seem to worry at things. They keep chewing their toys apart. So there's all kinds of different things that that animal might be doing where it seems like destructive behavior, or it seems like they just can't seem to relax, just can't seem to be like, okay, I'm just going to sit and chill for 5 minutes. So for an animal who's maybe being anxious, I'll often ask them, hey, what's your person like? Does your person do these things? Sometimes it can be kind of tricky because when you try to get a person to make a change in behavior, it's really hard to change a person. So if their pet is behaving in a certain way, and then I can ask the pet and I can say, hey, does your person do this? And if they tell me yes, then I try to make the approach where I'm working with the person to say, I think your animal needs an example here. We want the dog to be calmer. We want the dog to be a little bit more relaxed. So, could you maybe take a half an hour in the evening and just sit in a chair, maybe read a book, watch TV, put on a movie, listen to headphones, do something where you can show the dog what it's like to sit still and just relax. And often when I've talked with animals and worked with animals that way, I come back and we'll do a check-in later, and the animals will be like, oh yeah, this is so much better. And people will be like, there it's really great. And I've gotten 2 books read this month. So sometimes it's kind of a win on that where I'm helping people without really trying to help them, but they're giving that behavior to their animal so that the animal gets a better idea about what to do. It helps the animal not take on so much, and it's just better overall. Some of our animals, working with people who do things like massage therapy, Reiki healers, energy workers. Oftentimes they'll tell me that their animals love to come into the room wherever they're doing their work. And so sometimes it's a matter of letting the person know that their animal has connected to the job they've chosen to do and is wanting to be a guide, that sometimes they just enjoy that energy. Sometimes they come in and they'll tell me that they help boost their person's energy. So in those cases where if a person's working on like massage, maybe they have a home office where they can do that. Their clients come in, they get the massage. I'll ask them, it's like, is it okay if the dog, the cat, the turtle, whichever animal they have is in the room with you and the client, as long as the client agrees, I said, your animals are boosting that. So that's their job. So afterwards, it might be nice if you give them that little, like give them a little rub down, give them something that helps them know they've helped this client, they're relaxed, they feel good. Now you give them that little bit of a massage, and then the animal gets to have the massage too. You can thank them for their work there. Animals who have, like I've had a few dogs, pit bulls. A lot of people are afraid of pit bulls. They were originally bred to actually be like nanny dogs and help take care of families. Over the years, we've had people who I would honestly say kind of mistreat the idea of a pit bull, and they try to make them mean, they try to make them ferocious. You can do that with any breed. It doesn't have to be a pit bull, but the pit bulls love families. They love to be with their family members. And so sometimes they'll take on the task of wanting to protect, especially young children. And sometimes we have to ask the dog, maybe you're scaring people a little bit. Like, you don't have to be worried about it. What we ask that animal to do is not continue to be a guardian, but a companion, a friend, teacher to the children at that point, so that they're in a position where they can watch the surroundings. They can make sure that the child isn't getting into a cabinet that they're not supposed to, and they can alert the parents to that. They can make sure that strangers aren't coming into the house, or like the kids aren't playing in the backyard and a stranger doesn't come in. So in those cases, we're asking them to be more watchful and more companionable as opposed to guardians, because it takes the edge off. It tones it down a little bit, and they're not having to be so on guard. In those cases, I ask the animals to work with their people and to know that the person is really who they need to take the cue from. So if the dog maybe thinks that there's something that's not quite right, they can give the assigned alert. The person can come out and check. And if the dog looks at the person and the person's like, nope, everything's okay, we're good, the dog can relax. If the person's like, no, there's something going on, then we can let the dog go into that next level of like, okay, I'm going to help bring the kids in the house, or I'm going to help take them out of that situation. So again, we want the job to fit, but we don't want to make the animal over anxious or over stressed by doing the job, because then it takes away the fun. It can take away some of what is needed or what you're trying to achieve. We don't want to turn one behavior into something that becomes, again, another unwanted behavior, for example. So it really has to do with fitting that situation, adapting what's happening, the reasons why. And in most cases, animals like to be heard. So feeling like they just don't know why they're in a home. Often we've solved a lot of problems where we ask the person, how do you see your animal fitting into your family? What do you want them to do? How are they here to help you? And I've had people go like, I don't know. I just wanted a cat. I wanted a parrot. And now I have one. And I'm like, okay, well, you have one, but your cat, your parrot, your dog is like going like, well, I'm here. Now what? So, and anytime you have a bored animal, you have somebody with time on their paws, their little furry feet, their wings, and they can get into all kinds of mischief, especially when you're not looking, things that you don't want them to get into. We don't want that to become a destructive behavior. We want it to be a happy relationship. So then we kind of look at again, figuring out with the person, how do you see them fitting in? And if they don't have an answer right then, it's okay. I'll tell them that they need to think about it, like what they're looking for, and they can always ask their animal to do the job later. So let's say with the parrot example, we have somebody who's like, oh, I just find birds fascinating. Somebody was giving up their bird. I brought their bird in, and we're like, okay, well, first let's make the bird feel welcome, so we get the bird adjusted to the new home, let them know why they're in that new environment. And then we can ask, like, how do they want this to be their interactions? And people who are like, I don't know, I've just never had a bird, I'm just fascinated by them. So sometimes we can start out and we can say, okay, you have this great parrot right now, and maybe you need to have the parrot be a teacher, help you understand how to interact with a bird. Like, what kind of needs does the bird have, outside of they need to have enough space to be able to stretch wings, move around. You might not really want them flying around your house all the time, but let's say if you have a dog or a cat, you also want the bird to feel safe because you don't want the bird or the cat attacking the bird. And so we're asking the bird to be a teacher, for everybody in a household to be patient and help the person figure out how they need to work with that bird and interact. And then later, maybe after they feel like, okay, we've got a good relationship, we've got that down, the jobs can change. And so anytime we change the job, we can be like, okay, thank you for being a teacher. I've learned a lot from you. I'm hoping to continue learning from you. But now what I would like is I would like you to be more of a companion. I'd like to be able to bring you out of your cage. I'd like to bring you into my office, home office, and I'd like you to be able to kind of sit with me and maybe be on Zoom meetings, because it helps people focus in, because now I have this bird. So while they're listening to me, they can look at the bird. So you can change jobs for animals. Just let them know you appreciate what they did. You tell them what you're hoping for with the next job. Rewards might be the same, rewards might change. So let's say you have a dog who loves baby carrots as a snack. And you're like, okay, your job is to walk on the leash nicely, stay by my side when we go out for a walk instead of dragging me down the sidewalk. And so every time you go out for a walk, the dog stays by your side. You're not yanked down the sidewalk. When you get back home again, they get a baby carrot. One day, maybe the dog decides, I'm done with baby carrots. I want something different. Maybe you've changed the job at the same time, and you can be like, okay, the last 3 months, you've been so great about walking down the sidewalk. I really enjoy these walks with you. The dog is like, yeah, I don't want a carrot. I like attention. I like to play ball in the yard after we're done with the walk. Great, you've settled that job, you've gotten a new playtime out of it, and now we're going to ask the dog to like make sure nobody chews up the library books. And so he has to watch the library books. So the kids bring them home, they're studying, they're working with those books. The books get returned with no teeth marks on them. Maybe this time he wants an actual like greenie treat or dog biscuit of some sort. So the rewards can change, the job can change. And I know I'm kind of throwing a lot of ideas out there, and we have a couple of visitors in here, but if any of you have animals or if you have any issues like this, I'd be happy to hear if you have like something that you're trying to change or that you want to acknowledge your animal for. I'd be happy to explain how you can assign jobs or how you might already be working a job with your animals. And if not, that's okay too.
Yeah. Kat, it's you brought up something that I never I don't know, that never crossed my mind, that the animal would want to have a role, a function. And so that to me, that's a great concept. Uh because occasionally, you know, we know when I think Billy, our black cat, has probably assigned herself as Bob's main companion.
Mhm.
And she has brought so much calming energy to him, you know, where the, the when Donna was coming here before COVID, you kind of almost felt like he was walking on a tightrope, and you never knew when that man was going to explode from, nothing serious, just explode because that was his nature. And
Right.
this, I can get him to see a different point of view almost instantly, which never happened before. And I think I can now credit the cat for doing that because the cat Billy will spend maybe 4 hours a day or more in his lap, and he's just stroking her.
It's a great that thank you, that's a great example. And a lot of times our animals give us instant feedback. So if he's reactive in that moment, that
Mhm.
usually scares an animal. They don't like that sudden change, that sudden loud noise or whatever's happening in that moment. And so that instant feedback, you're like, oh, I upset the cat. Not anything against men, but I find usually men have stronger reactions, or they don't always want to admit that they care about their animals so much that they follow what the animals are doing. So sometimes them being able to make that realization on their own helps make changes faster than if the wife, sister, mom, girlfriend says anything to them, because it's like they're like, oh, Billy doesn't like it. I can't do that anymore. So they find different ways to work around stuff. So I find it really fascinating how much our animals actually teach us, and how, if people are open and responsive, we make a lot of behavioral changes based on that. And it's, again, I think it goes back to a lot of credit. People take a long time to make changes. It's really difficult. We can say, I want to lose weight, I'm going to stop eating potato chips. And that might work for a couple of days. Then you see somebody else eating potato chips and you're like, oh man, just one won't hurt. And then next thing you know, you've eaten a third of a bag of potato chips. So, we try to make decisions we can't always stick with. We're slower to make those changes. Our animals can be a little bit faster, and instant recognition, instant feedback is really great. And our animals are so forgiving about things sometimes. So if we're like, okay, I'm going to try to be calmer. I don't want to scare the cat. I don't want to make the cat run. So kind of learning that, then you're like, oh man, I blew it. I made the cat run. The cat's going to come back and be like, it's okay. I'll still sit in your lap. So they're not going to disappear. Usually they don't like give the cold shoulder unless you've gone on vacation. Cold shoulders to me are really funny with animals, where if you go on vacation, I
Yeah.
really recommend tell your animal you're going to be gone. Tell them how long, tell them where you're going, tell them when you'll be back and what you're going to do with them when you get back. But it's amazing to me how many times people just go on vacation. They're like, okay, we have a pet sitter coming in. We know that the animal's going to be fed and cared for. They go off, they do their thing, they come home, and the animals are like, finally, you're back. I'm so happy to see you. Get away from me. And they wander off and they won't talk to you for like a day, and then finally they come back around again, and people are always asking me like, why did they get so mad at me? And I'm like, well, did you tell them you were going anywhere? And so did you bring back something for them? And that's another fun thing. Sometimes the reward, like if you're going on vacation, the job in that case could be like, okay, we have the pet sitter coming. They're going to stay in the house. So you are in your own environment. You get your food, you get your water as much as possible. The sitter's going to do the schedule that we usually do. You're going to go for a walk in the morning, you'll go for a walk in the afternoon. You'll be able to go outside in the backyard whenever those types of times are. And then when you come back, I've suggested to people before, when you're out and about on your travels, don't buy something real extravagant or something, but you might see a little rock, or you might see a pine cone if you went camping, for example. Bring that little pine cone back. Let your
Mhm.
animal play with it. Let them see it. You could be like, hey, while I was out, I thought of you because I brought you this. Sometimes they'll look at it and go like, whatever. Sometimes they'll be like, awesome, and it's like they'll play with it. They'll do something with it. They've got that little interaction. Part of what happens with that is while you're gone, while you're kind of thinking like, okay, I need to find something for the cat, I need to find something for the dog, bring it home again, you're thinking about them while you're gone. Our pets don't worry about how far away we are. Distance doesn't matter for them. They can still pick out your thoughts. They know where you are. They have a homing device to you. And so when you're out and away, you think about them. They can feel that. They hear those thoughts. The other thing that it works the other way too is our animals can give us messages. So while you're out, let's say you're traveling, you're visiting cousins. So you've gone from Nevada, now you're in Iowa, and you're visiting cousins, and you're out walking through the cornfield, just going for a walk with the cousins, and all of a sudden you're like, the cat wants a treat. And you're like, in the middle of a cornfield. Why would I suddenly be thinking about the cat? The cat has sent you a message. It's like, hey, I just wanted to check out what you're doing. I would like a treat. The pet sitter's ignoring me. So,
Mm.
you get those messages. It's because they're sending you a thought as well. If that happens, you can just acknowledge back and you say, I'm going to use Billy's name here, for example. You'd be like, oh, Billy, I'm traveling right now. Thank you for thinking of me. I miss you too. I'll be home in 2 more days. So just send a little message back to them. Let them know you thought about them. You got that message. They'll calm down. And for the most part, any animal that tells you that the pet sitter is not giving them enough treats is probably fibbing to you a little bit, because I have never yet had an animal say, oh, please stop feeding me treats. I've had way too many. They never say that. Pet sitters are probably going to be a little bit more extravagant than you are, just because it's a different routine. They're there watching the pet. They want the pet to like them while you're gone. And so they're probably giving a little more treat than you might actually give. So usually good.
Wonderful.
Trying to think of other examples here that I've had. Um,
Oh, Kat, I have an
yes.
example. You, oh my gosh, let's see how long. Oh my gosh, I think it's coming on 15 years that I've known you, or that we've worked together. I think, oh wow, it's been
In a
that
minute.
long. A year or two maybe. Um, but because you had, with my daughter's two cats originally way back, and both of them unfortunately are gone now. But um, oh, Remus, I had contacted you about Remus last year. Actually, we talked about that.
Yes.
But you had talked about this, about letting them know, and what we've done. We've moved quite a bit, and every time we start well in advance before a move, and we tell them, even when we're just discussing it, because there's always that discussion. It doesn't have to be tension, but you're anxious, and
Mhm.
they can pick up on that, and you've got maps out or whatever, and you've got your laptops out all the time and talking, um and they're aware of that. So that's what we've always done with them whenever we would move, is we would start well in advance and just let them know we're going to be talking about this. We're bringing you, because you had mentioned that one time. We're bringing you with us. This is how it's going to be, or we're going on in the car. It's going to be a long drive, and we would start telling them well in advance. And then before the baby was born, she's now 10 years old, but they also prepared the cats for the baby.
Perfect.
Again, well in advance. They didn't wait until just before, and they kept talking about how the cats will integrate, how the baby will integrate into the family. So
Right.
those are two examples I wanted to mention that I've learned from you over the years.
Oh, nice. And it makes it a little bit easier because now the animals are like, I'm like, okay, you're including me in the decisions. They understand a little bit more about what's happening. Sometimes planning takes place. And again, like people like to plan lots of things. So some people can be like really spontaneous and are just like, oh, we're going to do it now. Everything goes in a suitcase and poof, off the door you go. And the animals are like, wait, what just happened? But planning in advance or letting them know ahead of time makes it a little bit easier. I think things go a little bit better. They aren't worried about like, you're going to forget me or I'll get lost or you're giving me up to somebody else. All of those thoughts kind of go away. And one thing you
Mhm.
had mentioned there too, when you were talking about like with the pregnancy and the new baby coming in, that one, I like to talk with people who are about to have kids, or if they're pregnant for the first time, for example, especially the first child. A few times I've had some women tell me, they're like, the cats are going crazy. What is going on? Like my cat used to be pretty independent and now the cat is just like all over me. And when I tap in with the cats, it's happened more than once for me where the woman did not know she was pregnant yet. And so, in talking with the cat is
Mm.
like, oh, my person smells good. Apparently, pregnant women smell good. I don't know. It's not a scent like humans can pick up necessarily on each other, but our animals are more sensitive to that. And I have had so many cats tell me it's like, ooh, my mom smells good. She's gonna have a litter, and it's like kind of use their terms. But I've alerted probably 5 women over the last few years that they were pregnant. And most of them had told me, like, oh, we're trying, but I don't think so. And then I get a call back about, a month later, and they're like, oh my gosh, I am pregnant. And so it's like in that case, we can ask the cat to kind of be like a companion to the mom, to like, help the mom know that there's going to be a lot of changes. We can ask the cat to be ready to kind of like be helpful. I know some people get worried that their animals are going to interact or be too close to the children, and I'm like, honestly, no. I've had people who are afraid that the dog will be negatively reactive to the baby, and I'm like, no. Usually, because we can tell them in advance what's happening, that we can let them know, okay, like the humans are going to have to give that newborn a lot more attention. So it doesn't mean they love you less, but this newborn can't do much. A new kitten, a new puppy actually like starts developing and can do a lot more stuff on their own faster than human infants. And so helping the animal know, okay, it's going to take a little bit longer. My human has to give them more attention, helps them understand. But a lot of times the cat, the dog, they want to be involved. They kind of keep an eye on it. I've had both bring their parents something where like maybe the baby's napping and kicks a booty off, and I've had people tell me it's like the cat keeps bringing me the baby's booties, what's up? And I'm like, you might want to check the baby, the foot might be exposed or something, and it's like depends on how cold it is. You may or may not want the booty on the baby. Dogs like to be like, oh, the baby's crying, here, give him this toy, kind of a thing. Because if the dog was unhappy, they would want something to play with. So animals love it when kids come in. They also tell me that human babies smell like pack. So it smells like a combination of their humans. And so the
Hmm.
scent is very much there. For other people, sometimes it's more a matter of not that the animal's going to be an issue or be worrisome with the new baby, but people can sometimes still have that like what if fear. And no matter how much you try to reassure them, don't think about the what ifs. You want to look at the picture of like, this is going to be what it's like when we bring the baby home. The cat, the dog might be in the room with them. They're going to like watch them, but this is what it looks like when everything looks good, looks calm. The dog isn't carrying the baby by the diaper and walking down the hallway kind of a thing. You don't have those images. You have the good ones. And sometimes I'll say like, okay, while you're in the hospital, which those visits are shorter and shorter all the time now. But if you can take something that the baby's touched, a blanket that it's been wrapped in, send it home first, then the animal can also get that smell, get reassured. Okay, yep, this is Pack.
Mm.
Pack is coming home. So that's a great point.
Mm. Interesting. Yes.
Some
Yeah,
of the other
I
things.
have,
Oh, yeah, yes.
cat, I have a little problem right now with our cat. She keeps insisting on biting our Dracaena marginata that, it stands in the entrance foyer, but as we're coming down the stairs, it kind of, couple leaves poke through. So she will stop at, and try to nibble on a leaf. And I've just, no matter what I say, I can't seem to discourage her
Okay.
from eating it. Any advice you can give me on that?
In this case, I think we would need to ask Billy to be a gardener, kind of, and we want Billy to not chew on the leaves. So we're going to ask Billy that in addition to her not chewing on the plant, that we're going to ask that she keeps an eye on everybody in the household and nobody's allowed to chew on the plant. So if she thought you were going to walk over and start chewing on it, she can go over and go, no, 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 kind of a thing. And so she can tell you not to chew on the plant. We can let her know that it's not very good for the plant. It makes the plant look scraggly. It could be also, I don't know that one if it's poisonous to cats or not. So, we don't want her to have an upset tummy.
Yeah.
Things that you might try to help discourage that a little bit is if you were willing or have access to any, is get a little tray of cat grass or something and say, if she doesn't chew on your plant, that she can chew on some cat grass. And so we have markets here. Called Sprouts or Whole Foods. I don't know what's across the country, but it's more of a natural or holistic, not holistic, but more organic type market that sells this pre-made, and you can also buy seeds and just put it in some little swale. The cats love it. The stuff grows really fast. So if you get seeds and plant it, within a week you'll have actual grass they can chew on. Most cats don't really seem to throw it up too much, but sometimes when they're eating grass, it's because their tummy doesn't feel great. And so they're trying to get that upset feel to go away.
Mm.
When I was asking Billy about this, though, I don't get an upset tummy from her. I think it's just more of a, if she does it, you guys react. And so she's like, oh, I think she's doing it out of a little bit of boredom.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
could also
Alice,
try, oh,
Alice, does she eat only the leaves that are poking through the stairs? Is that
Yeah.
maybe just an interest
Yes.
catching her attention, maybe?
Yeah. And I try to, how you can take the leaves and kind of tuck them
like fold them or tuck
between,
them. Yeah.
so that they don't poke through, but invariably they slide out and they poke through. Yeah. She doesn't attack. She doesn't go jump on the plant and
Okay.
try to eat it in any way, shape, or form. It's always just what strand is out there. Dracaena marginata is just a little bit poisonous, so it's enough to give her an upset tummy, but not enough to kill her. Dumb
Right.
cane, the is they when I went to I found a beautiful plant that called dumb cane, and they said if you have a pet in the house, eh, the the gardener there just told me point blank, I won't sell this to you, because it's highly poisonous to a
Mm.
pet.
That can happen. Do you notice it more when you're going down the stairs?
Down. Yes.
Okay. Um, I'm also getting from her, she thinks it's a tripping hazard.
Oh,
I mean, I don't think you or your husband are going to trip. I mean, if the plant leaf brushes up against you, the strand brushes, I don't think it's going to trip you. But
no.
she's also saying it's like kind of being watchful. I would actually get some small soft toys and you keep a couple up at the top of the stairs. So as you're getting ready to go down, you could toss one down the stairs, make it land in the middle of the landing or the floor, have that draw her attention and have her go for that and see if that works too.
Okay.
The downside is you could end up with like, 3 or 4 soft toys in the middle of your foyer at the end of the day. But, if you scoop them up, take them back up the stairs, you have them ready to go the next morning.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
I
Sure.
was wondering, when I had asked if she's trying to clean house or keep things tidy or something. Because in her mind, that's out of place. And Alice's house is always immaculate. Nothing is ever out of place. So I was just envisioning your house and I thought, well, Billy might be thinking, oh, no, no, this doesn't belong here. We need to clean it up.
I
Uh,
don't really get that from her.
Thank you.
I'm not, it's a possibility, but I don't really think that's what she's thinking in this case. This has
It's her
more of a,
concern.
it's a distraction.
Mm.
It's something else. There's been other things that have been on the stairs before where like the thought or a question has come up about, oh, we need to move this, or, it's like here, so we can take it up the stairs, but we don't want to leave it there. I think coming downstairs sometimes is harder for people. Going up is more effort, but coming down seems to be where sometimes issues can happen. And I just kind of get the feeling more about she wants to be sure like the thoughts have been put out there by either person. We need to keep these clear. We need to not trip coming down the stairs.
Mm.
So I kind of get the feel more of that from her.
Thank you. That makes sense. That makes sense. So, because I mean, it doesn't, no matter how I discourage her, she keeps doing it. So,
Sorry. The only other thing I could think of there would be a real sheer piece of fabric, or if you had um I think like cheesecloth, something that could kind of blend in, but I don't know if you could fasten it just like right behind where the plant is so that the plant can't go through that. I don't know if that would help distract her enough from it, but again, you don't necessarily want to have this like piece of fabric, like strung up to your stairwell railings for long, but it may be enough to kind of like break that habit and make her change her mind if you don't feel like you can distract her with anything else.
okay.
Sometimes just breaking that habit changes a lot. Or she also goes like, oh, there's fabric here now, so okay, mom gets it, she's seen this, like she knows I've been working on it, even if like nothing else helped, just saying something to her didn't help.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see, school children, children who are like going back to school. Sorry, I've got one cat who's like pretty insistent it's dinner time back here. School children and people going to college. So, from the parents' mind, going to college, you're probably still your kid, but the college age kid is like, I'm an adult now. So you've got that age there. But sometimes our pets react to having had somebody in the house and now they're not there anymore. So if you have kids who've been home for the summer, they're going back to school, you might want to remind the pet that their kid is going off to school, that's their job for that part of the day, and that the kid will be home in that afternoon. And maybe we can ask the pet, your job could be like when they get home, help them settle down to do their homework. I don't know, like I don't have kids. I don't know how often homework is assigned anymore these days, if it is, but that might be something that you could do, or helping them to know that, okay, when the child comes home, that maybe that could be snack time or the kids need to change clothes. So asking the animal to help remind the kid, like, oh, got to go to the bedroom, change clothes, or, sit down and relax. Maybe they have to put their sneakers over here. Maybe they put their backpack here. And so if the cat or the dog goes to that spot where that backpack or the sneakers need to be, it helps remind the child. So now their job is helping the child be responsible for their belongings. For college age students, sometimes our animals really miss their person. So you have this high schooler who's going off to college, the dog has been sleeping with them, and now the person disappears. Usually you can't really take the dog with you. Some college kids go to a different state even, and so it's not like they can really visit, or they don't come home as often anymore. So sometimes letting the animal know that their person has gone away, they'll be back maybe in 3 months for a home visit again, or for the holidays, letting them know that they're still thinking about him. The there, I might suggest also that the person who's going away to school maybe leave something specific for the animal to be able to cuddle up next to or sleep with. Like it could be a used towel, it could be a t-shirt, and we can just remind them, it's like, okay, your person's going to be gone. Your job is to just like hold the space in their room, make sure things don't get moved around, assuming that the child has a room to themselves, kind of a thing. And so making sure that it's all the way it is now, so that when they come back to a visit, they can move right back into their room and they've got everything, and then the animal can sleep with them again while they're home. So it kind of helps a little bit. Our animals will react to somebody not being there. If you have an older family member, or a family member who has gone through a surgery where they need to go into a rehab for a little while, and they're not going to be able to be home because they can't be there for that time frame, you might want to let the animal know that the person has to go through some healing time, that they're going to be in a hospital, they won't be there. People who've gone into like more permanent care facilities. So it's like the family just can't care for them at home anymore. When a person has to go into permanent care, sometimes it affects the animals, and the animals can get mad at the rest of the family, going like, what did you do? You hid my person. Where are they? They don't understand that that person just can't come home right now, or can't be back again. Cats, it's a little bit harder, but if you have a dog and the facility will allow visits, you can be like, okay, we're going to go visit Aunt Jenny. She's in the hospital now, she's recovering. They said that you can come visit. Your job is going to be to behave nicely. You can't bark at anybody. You can't tug on any tubes or wires, or, you don't want anything like that happening. But we're going to go visit Aunt Jenny. And so, you might be able to take them. Sometimes the animals are like, oh my goodness, here you are. Here's my person. They're so happy to see them. And then you get them home again, and they're not so mad at the family anymore. They don't feel like you've hidden that person. They don't feel like, oh, that person was bad, you made him go away. I've had that happen before, where there was a couple who fought, and one of them, they were breaking up. They were in the process of a divorce. So like one moved out, and the dog was left and was kind of like, what'd you do with my person? I had more fun with that one than you. Why am I stuck with you? And where did it go? So sometimes explaining what happens, sometimes somebody moving out has to go into an apartment where they can't take an animal, or, their job makes them travel too much and they can't take the animal. So letting them know, in that case, their job is like, okay, you're going to help me adjust to living alone. So I need to be able to watch you to see, how do you handle, like, that person's gone now. I have to go to work. You're going to be here for a couple of hours by yourself. I need to see that you can behave nicely, that you don't chew up anything you're not supposed to. So your job here is to show me how to be able to handle that time alone from anybody else. So then when I come home again, I'm like, oh, the house looks great. It's like I left it. Now I'm really happy to see that you were okay. Let's have some together time. We're going to go out in the backyard. We're going to go play. We're going to go for a walk. fix dinner, whatever it is that you want to do with them. But letting them know about changes like that can really help. An animal who's mad at you about something can sometimes be kind of hard to figure out what was the trigger. And an animal that's mad at you can be anything from giving you the cold shoulder to peeing on something to chewing up a favorite shoe, your leather couch, all kinds of things like that. So if your animal's displaying signs about something that's mad, they seem mad, they seem destructive, try to find out what changed. It could be a routine. You might have moved. It could be that somebody in the house is no longer there. It could be another pet who was there, isn't there anymore. And so sometimes just helping them acknowledge, okay, I know we've had a change. This is tough on me too. I have to do something different. You're going to help me learn how to adjust, and we can learn this together. So the job there is kind of like both of you are learning. It's a growth opportunity, and growth opportunities can be really fun sometimes. It could be learning something new, a new skill gives you a lot of excitement. Growth opportunities and learning opportunities can sometimes be the not so fun kind, where you have to learn how to deal with the loss of somebody or something else, where you have to deal with change and you've moved, you've changed jobs. All of the friends, everybody that you used to go to the mall, go shopping with, or hang out for breakfast someplace once a week, they're gone. Now you have to figure out, okay, what am I going to do different? Your pets are kind of going through that too. So together, you have the job of helping each other be supportive, acknowledging each other, knowing it's okay to feel stressed about those changes, but knowing that there's positive ways to also deal with all of those changes. Really good to do with your pets. And sometimes it's just like you might get into animal where you're like, I just need you to have fun with me. I just want you to be fun. I don't really have huge expectations. If you want to do something that's good, that's fun, let me know. Kind of we'll go from there. But sometimes you just want that dog who's like, okay, I'm a jogger. I want to go jogging. I'd like to have a dog come run with me, so you want to go out and find that dog that likes to run, take them with you. Going out and being social. Maybe I'm not a sports person. I don't get into that physical activity stuff. It's a little tough. I don't do that, but some people really love that. So going out to parks, being social, meeting up with friends, hanging out at a picnic table someplace can be great. So you want a dog who's a companion, who's really happy to go out and will be social with you and just be like a social butterfly. That can be a job too. Um, and then at the same token, sometimes people are like, okay, um, we have people who use service animals. Service animals can can vary widely as to how they're obtained, how they're used, how they're trained. And so some service animals, like for leading a blind person, very, very specific training. You get the dog from whoever did that actual training school. There's usually training for the person as well, but it's a very set skill. And those dogs are usually screened to know that, yes, they can and will handle that job. Sometimes I've got people who are like, I'm just anxious in social situations. I'm anxious around new people. If I had my way, I would just sit in my room at home and I would never leave the house. It's probably not a realistic expectation to think that you can sit in your room and never leave your house. Hopefully you do get out once in a while for no other reason, fresh air, go get groceries, something activity there. But I've had a few people who tell me like, oh, I got this dog because I want them to be my companion animal and I'm going to take them everywhere, but they don't really go through formal training. And this can be a little tricky sometimes because sometimes the dogs are like, oh, I get drug everywhere. I don't want to do this. I want to stay home. Why do I have to go? I don't like riding in the car. I don't want to do this. And so sometimes asking the animal before you really get it and set it up in this situation can help like, okay, I have this little peach colored poodle who really wants to go with me and is happy to let me hold them, is happy to be a companion and be with me. And you've got this little Yorkie Terrier who's like, I'm not going out there. Are you kidding me? There's crazy people out there. Everybody wants to touch me. I don't want to be touched. Why are they touching me? So you ask the animals, will they accept the job? And so that kind of helps set them up a little bit. In those cases, sometimes it's often a matter of training the person a little bit more than the animal, but it helps make it where you can have an animal that you can take out into public, that they can behave nicely, that people aren't questioning you about, like, well, why'd you bring your house pet with you? It's like, no, this is my service animal. So you kind of help them be better in those social situations, because there can be a lot of pressure. And something I have found is our dogs, especially because more people take their dogs out in public with them, other people see that. And if you're a dog person, you might not recognize it right away, but you're like, oh, a dog, so cute. I want to go pet it. And like you reach for it. It's like if you were to walk through the supermarket and somebody's walking up to you and they're like, hey, and they just wrap you in a hug, you're liable to be like, who are you? Get off me, kind of a thing. Our dogs can feel that way sometimes. So when you take your dog out, you're kind of like being a guardian and watching back for the animal to help them feel safe and protected. So they're helping you by going like, okay, we're in a safe setting, we're happy, we're having fun. I don't sense anybody with bad intentions around me. But the person is also helping the dog go like, okay, I can help keep people from touching you. We can ask them to ask if they can touch you. So it's a two for two in that case, where you're both working together to have that social setting, that social job. Again, the reward there can be like, like, okay, she's asking, would you like to get pets from this person over here? And the dog can be like, yep, I'll take them. Or the dog can be like, nah, not today, kind of a thing. So, your reward there is like you listened to the dog, you listened to them, you help them be able to have their own boundaries and have their own rights, if you will. And free will is something that people and animals have. So allowing your animal to have that free will, to be able to have a little bit of choice, to be able to say, yes, I want to do this, or no, I don't, can really help go a long way for it. Another job that you might bring in is like sometimes you have, let's say you've had two dogs. So you grew up with two dogs and one has passed away. The other one's a little older. Sometimes I ask, let's ask the animals, because people are like, I can't imagine not having another dog. I can't imagine being without one for any length of time. Sometimes if you have that older dog who's already lost a companion, you might want to ask them, are you ready to have another companion? Will you help teach them the household rules? Will you help them be part of the family? You want to get that yes or no from them before you bring in a younger one. Sometimes bringing in a younger one, the older dog is like great, gets rejuvenized, and you're like, wow, it brought new life back to the dog. Sometimes they're like, wow, this was a lot. I didn't want to have to deal with a puppy. So sometimes getting that input before you bring in the animal can be good. Makes your life a little bit easier, just knowing that they're accepting of what you've chosen for them. Let's see. So, I mean, it's a lot of information, a lot of different activities, just many, many, many different ways that you can work with your animals, that you can help them be part of your family, part of your own personal life if you live alone, and just lots of different things. Jobs are certainly not limited to things I've mentioned here. If I was to try to list off jobs humans do, there's thousands of jobs humans do. And jobs could be very, very specific just between you and that animal, just what you want. But the key things here, I think, are asking the animal, will they be part of it? Will they take on that job? Letting them know what that reward is, how you want to make sure that they know that they're recognized for doing whatever it was that you've asked of them. And then if it gets to a point where you're like, okay, I don't think we need to do this anymore, you can thank the animal and tell them that they don't have to do that job anymore. And it just like, let's go. Sometimes a new job comes into play, sometimes it doesn't. But I will tell you one story here. And I had a couple who came in, husband and wife came in, and the wife believed a little bit more in what I can do and how I can talk with animals than the husband did. but they were saying how that the dog just really wasn't being very settled. They felt it was destructive. The husband thought it was a little bit more destructive than the wife, and it was just like always wanting in, then it would want out, then it would want in and out, and it wouldn't just pick a side of the door. And the husband was frustrated. And so one of the things that we talked about there was, what was the dog looking for? And the dog said that he really loved the guy, but he wanted to be able to do more with him. He wanted to have time with the guy. And so in talking with this gentleman, we kind of went around and we asked, like, what does he like to do? Well, it turns out he was a jogger, but he wouldn't take the dog with him because he didn't think that the dog would like follow his lead, wouldn't stay by him. And so I was like, okay, well, try shorter steps. Go into the backyard. If you run across the backyard, can you get the dog to stay with you? If you go to a park, can you run across the park and get the dog to stay with you? And then try an actual jogging event. The guy did this. He started out sort of slow. He got the dog where he was like, okay, well, I think the dog is behaving. I think he's doing what I want. But in the backyard, there were no distractions. So he wasn't 100% sure it would work. But eventually he talked himself into taking the dog out on a jog with him. The dog loved it, stayed with him, didn't try to sniff squirrels, wasn't chasing off after cars or anything else. And so the guy was like, great. Well, the dog got to where it wasn't trying to get in the door, out the door, in the door, out the door all day long. And the man was like, oh, this is perfect. The dog's calmed down. And then he quit taking the dog with him to go jogging. They called me up about a month after that it happened, and he's like, he goes, things were great. And he goes, and now it's right back to that same old behavior. I'm like, huh, well, let's find out. So tap in with the dog, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? They said that you did great. And the dog sat down, gave me this image in my mind, and he's like, that man, he took me out jogging. He got me all excited. We'd had a great time going out running. And then he quit taking me. I have to stay home. Why do I have to stay home? And he goes, he quit doing his job. So I'm not going to sit peacefully anymore. So I go back to the man. I'm like, you stopped running with the dog, didn't you? And his wife started to laugh. She hadn't said anything to me, and he got embarrassed, and he was like, yeah, he goes, I guess I did. And I'm like, you need to take the dog jogging. So, compromise. If it feels like it's too much, if you think you're doing too much, let your animal know, okay, I'm not taking you jogging with me 5 days a week, but maybe twice a week. So the dog has something to look forward to. It gives them something exciting. They have the time, the dates, there's a routine that starts to happen. And so the dog got one-on-one time with the man, got to go jogging. He didn't ask to go in and out, in and out, in and out, and the man was happier, the dog was happier, and the wife was like, I knew it, kind of all along. So again, jobs can be adjusted, but they're here to help out. They're here to make those connections better. They're here to give you and your companions something to do, ways to interact, ways to just relax and enjoy each other. And it kind of gives more meaning to each side of the relationship, and our animals feel like they have value, and everybody likes to feel that they have value. They want to know they matter to somebody. And so for me, a job shows how they matter to us. So I think I'm ending just a few minutes early here, but that really kind of covers the points I wanted to cover. And so I just wanted to say, if there's any questions, I mean, we've had some good feedback back and forth, but any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Could you give us some examples of how a dog responds to what you're asking them?
Oh, sure. Okay. So sometimes, like, if the dog has a behavior, let's say you live someplace where you've got lots of lizards, okay? So lizards, okay?
Iguanas. Iguanas are all over. Yes.
And so, you like the lizards because they're going to eat mosquitoes, they're going to eat little bugs. If the dog's chasing the lizard, sometimes they catch the lizard, or, outcome isn't great for the lizard. You don't want that. So in this case, we're going to be like, okay, the dog's job here is, we're going to say, like, okay, we need the lizards to eat the bugs. We understand that you like to chase those lizards. We know that you like to have fun with them, that they're fun to watch, but we're going to ask you, instead of catching the lizard, could you maybe just watch it, follow it, maybe go close to it, but don't actually touch the lizard. And so the dog can say yes or no. In that case, sometimes I've had like a dog in that case might actually sit down and be like, what do you mean I can't touch it? That's the fun part. They're squiggly. They feel good on my tongue. There's things like that. And it's like, okay, well, imagine how does it feel when your person puts you in the bathtub? Do you like being wet and squiggled on and, like shampoo on you? Dog was like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, your human put you in a bathtub where maybe it doesn't feel like you had a choice. But when you put the lizard in your mouth, the lizard doesn't feel like it had a choice. So it's not real happy. And so sometimes giving them an example of why maybe don't do that helps them feel a little bit better. And they can be like, oh, I didn't think about that. Okay, I can change my mind. Sometimes they're like, well, I don't care. I just like eating the lizard. And I'm like, well, in that case, we might go with a different consequence and say, okay, instead of you, if you tell us that you can't be good, that you can't chase the lizard, that you can't not put it in your mouth, you don't get to go outside anymore. You have to stay inside. You can only go outside if you're on a walk. And I've had animals sit down, look at me, and their eyes get really big and go like, what? What do you mean I can't go outside? So sometimes letting them know that we really need them to make that change helps them get it. Sometimes I've had animals who we've asked them to do a job and they are so excited. They're like, oh, yes, yes, I want to be able to do that. So, an example here was like we had this 6-year-old who was supposed to put his toys in the toy box every night before he went to bed, and he wouldn't always do it. And so like mom was getting frustrated, didn't want to have to pick up the toys. And so we're like, well, okay, if the toys get left out, the dog thinks they're his, and so the dog was chewing on some stuff, and then the 6-year-old would get mad that the dog chewed on his teddy bear. And so we're like, okay, well, for the 6-year-old, your job is to go put the toys away. So we asked the dog, could you, instead of chewing on the teddy bear, maybe put it in the toy box, show the little boy how to put the toys away. And the dog was like, okay, I could do that. I could do that. Because once the toys were put away, the child went to bed. Then the child had all the mom's attention, got treats, got to go sit on the couch, got to watch TV, and so it was like, this is great. I have all my time back. I have my person back. And so the dog helped the little boy learn how to put toys away, but also got this really great reward. So sometimes it works out. I don't think I've ever had an animal actually go like, no, I am not doing that at all. Sometimes there's a little bit of a compromise involved. And sometimes I feel like it helps to check in with your animals. So you can ask them to do a job. Again, telling them what that reward is, how they're going to be able to get their pay for the job, if you will, lets them be like, okay, this is what it is. They can try it out and be like, okay, I don't really think this is fair. I don't think I can do it. I don't want to do it. So you might have to adjust or tweak it a little bit. But I think that's kind of fair. Like sometimes we could get a job where, I don't know, maybe a person wants to go work in a supermarket and the job that they get hired on is bagging the groceries. And you're like, oh, this is really boring. I don't like bagging the groceries. It's a lot of work. It's heavy. I don't want to have to walk the stuff out to the car for other people. And so then another job opens up and you can post, and now you can stock the shelves as opposed to bagging the groceries. So sometimes our jobs change, and it's that kind of a thing with your pets too. So let them know if it doesn't work, you can change jobs.
Kat, I have a question for you.
Yes.
I'm thinking about, oof, I didn't realize, it doesn't seem this dark to me. Um, um, my daughter's dog, Andorra, was a rescue, and she's the most loving dog ever. The problem is she's too loving, and she'll just like jump, and I mean she's, I don't know, not huge, but she's good
Right.
size and she's solid. And you sit on the couch and she'll keep jumping and jumping, and she's just so happy and she will not stop. Um, and she's so loving, you don't want to snap at her, but you just can't handle it anymore. My question is, what is the best way to communicate with them? I mean, I've gotten some ideas from what you've said, but does it tend to be more effective for animals if we think it if we look directly at them and just think, if we visualize what we want them to do, um, just to speak the words, or what is the best way to communicate typically with them?
Very good points and really good awareness of like human reactions and how animals might perceive it. Some of that may vary a little bit depending on the person. People who are more verbal, it might be better for a verbal command or verbal word. If person is really creative and can visualize a lot, I recommend honestly a combination of all of those things. So in this case, if Endora was there and if I was to go sit down and Endora started jumping on me, I'd be like, no, just kind of like, no. And then I would look away. I wouldn't put my hands out to touch her, or I might even stand up because now I'm not sitting on the couch. So she couldn't really jump on me. And I'd be like, I'd be happy to sit with you if you can sit with me nicely. I'll pet you if you can sit nicely, but your paws, your claws can hurt my skin. I can get bruised, and that doesn't feel very good. And so I'd like to be able to pet you, but I need you to do it calmly. And so telling her that, standing up, and then stop thinking about it. Look the other way. If she's trying to get your attention, just turn your back on her.
Mm,
When they don't get that visual, when they don't get a reaction anymore from you, then they're like, wait, this isn't working. I wanted your attention, now I don't have
mm,
it. And then the other part of that is maybe even before walking in, if you know you're going to sit down, instead of like, oh, I want to sit down, I want to go talk to them, but she's going to jump all over me. Well, you've just given the thought, jump all over me, and Endora
oh,
doesn't see don't. She sees jumping all over you. And she's like, I'm doing what you wanted. I saw it. I'm doing what you wanted. And so
mm,
what you want to do is walk into the living room going like, I'm going to sit down, and Dora's going to sit next to me and her head might be on my leg, and I'm going to pet her while her head is on my leg. And so
mhm,
that's the visual. Now she sees sitting there on the couch. She sees hands on. She sees that attention, and so it kind of is a combination of all those things going together. But trying to visualize it first is your best bet. And if it doesn't work, the standing up and turning your back to her is going to be a really huge, huge impact. They don't want to be ignored. They don't want to not get that interaction. And if they can't get it, why do that behavior? Nothing happens.
oh.
It's not worth it.
It just seems so, she's so loving. I hate to hurt her feelings like that by shunning her. I never thought about that,
Right.
but I will try it.
You can tell it to her too. It's like, I don't want to be like, I'm not mad at you, but you're too excited. I can't
Oh,
sit still when you're so excited. And I love that you want attention. I want to give you attention too, but I need it to be gentler, be gentle. And so that way it's like, she's getting it. And sometimes I equate our animals to like toddlers. They can get really excited about something, but they don't necessarily process the why behind it. You know,
they have no boundaries.
there's no boundaries. And so
No.
you're helping to establish boundaries, and healthy boundaries are healthy for everybody. They're good for everybody. So it's just trying to figure out how to set it. And then once it's there, it's like, you could be sitting there, and Dora, I have a lap. Do you want to come put your head on my lap? Can I pet you? And then she's
Mm,
lighted up, you're happy to see her, you've got hands on, but she's not jumping on you, you're not getting bruised, you're not getting scratched, or um, I'm I'm not a fan of being licked by animals at all. Like I don't want to be licked. I don't mind petting them. I don't mind them leaning up
mm,
against me. They can touch me, but I don't want to be licked, And
no.
so a dog that jumps up and licks my face, I'm an instant like, no, go away. And other people love it, so learning what you can do, and the dogs will learn where, she has to sit next to you. But, if your daughter doesn't give that same thing, she could jump all over your daughter and be just fine with it because, she's not setting that boundary. But it's okay to have different behaviors with different people as long as the person's okay with it too.
Hmm. Okay, that helps a lot. I am going to give it a try, and I will let you know how it goes.
Okay. Oh, you know what? And that actually led me to something else. I knew somebody who had their dog who it was a little like pug Pekingese type combination of a dog, and that dog would go crazy when like the doorbell would ring, or like
Mhm.
somebody new would come in, and the dog would just start barking and sound really ferocious, and the
Yeah.
owner would be like, oh, good girl, make him scared type of a thing. And other people would come in, they wouldn't appreciate that because like the dog never bit anybody. But when you don't really know an animal and all of a sudden they're growling and they're acting ferocious, like your inclination is like, I'm going to leave. I don't want to be around this. And so another friend had to step in and help care for her and the dog because she was going through some severe health issues. And the other friend would not tolerate that at all and was like, no, knock the behavior out of the dog, told him no. And then people would come to the door, people could come in and they would be like, is that the same dog? Because the dog wouldn't bark at them, wouldn't do that. And then when the owner actually came out of the hospital, the first time the owner did it, the friend was like, no, and shut the person down and wouldn't let the person do it. So it was kind of like once the person saw that their dog could behave nicely and wasn't scaring people, they were like, okay, fine. And they stopped encouraging that behavior. So it's like, it goes back and forth sometimes. And so great question.
Thank you very much.
You are so welcome.
So, Kat, the
Yes.
the significant animal in my life is not mine, it's my daughter's. Lived with me for a while. And now I'll just see the cat. Like I just spent 3 weeks cat sitting for my daughter while she was out of the country. And the cat has some behavior issues that I find problematic, that my daughter finds problematic. So I was wanted to pass on your contact information to her, and I just want to to double to I don't know if maybe Donna can put it into the chat or if you-
Sure. The best way to reach me or to have her make the connection is I know my email address is out there, but I actually do a little bit faster results with phone number, and I have a
Okay.
textable phone. So she
Okay.
can call or text and we can do it. I can give you that number. It's
Mm-hmm.
520
Uh-huh.
245
Uh-huh.
5120.
Okay.
And I usually I make appointments, so it's usually afternoons for me when I do the appointments because I have to work a day job still. But
Mm-hmm.
I can usually get something set up within a day or two of a phone call.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm gonna whenever this program the tape of the program becomes available, I'm gonna send her a link too, because you brought up a lot of issues that I think might be helpful, but
Okay.
I, so she watches this, but the cat kind of rules the house.
There
And,
can be
you
cats like
know,
that.
I'm formerly an early childhood teacher. And I see a lot of things like when a toddler or a preschooler is allowed too much power in the house, you see
Yes.
certain kinds of behaviors. And I feel that way a little bit about this cat. But then there are some other issues too, because she was initially part of a feral colony.
Okay.
So she's got some real anxieties around food. And,
Okay.
so there's more than just the cat spoiled. So,
Okay.
um, but yeah, she's said to me a number of times, I wish I knew why she did this. And I had
Oh.
said to her, so I know about this woman who communicates with pets telepathically. Would you be interested in talking to her? And she said yes. And then at that point, when I looked for your contact information, I couldn't find it. So I'm going to be sure and pass this on to her. So.
Sure. No, I'd be happy to talk with her. And kind of along those lines, I had some friends of mine. The gentleman worked for US Customs. Sorry, I've got a cattail going by.
Mhm.
The gentleman worked for US Customs and he was having to do something where it was out of the country. And he goes, I need a cat sitter. And I'm like, well, I have a cat myself. I can't go stay at your house, but I'm like, let's bring your cat to my house. And we kind of did a meet and greet, and the cats were like okay with each other. And so I took his cat and I had the cat for a month while he had to go do whatever it was he did with
Mhm.
customs. And one of the things that my rule in my house is they're not allowed on the kitchen counters. It's like on the table, if we're not eating, I don't care. They can be on the table. If we're eating, not allowed on the table, but kitchen counters, no time ever is my rule. And that's my really big rule in my household. The rest of it is like give or take. And when his cat came over, his cat was like, I could be anywhere I want and would get up on the counters. And I was like, nope. And we
Mm.
worked. When he got the cat back after that month, he called me up and he's like, he goes, is this really my cat? He goes, she's so different. She behaves. She doesn't get on the counters, so
Mhm.
so consistency, just kind of knowing what it is. But yeah, I think I can help your daughter. We can probably get some of that figured out. And coming from a feral
Mhm.
colony too, there's a few things there that we can just really help reassure her that, the cat is in a permanent household, doesn't have to worry about food, will get fed, things like that can really help calm them down and
Yeah.
feel better about where they're at.
Yeah, I was talking to her the whole time saying, look, I'm getting out your can. That means I'm going to give you your food. Do you see? And she's still like leaping up. And one of the homes that they lived in, one or more of my daughter's roommates over the years had dogs, which meant that the cat food had to be on the counter so the dog wouldn't eat it.
Right.
So there's no way to keep the cat off the counter now unless it'll be a big deal. It'll be a really
Okay.
big deal. But so as I'm putting the food from the dish, from the can into her dish, she's leaping up onto the counter and sticking her face in it. And I would just pick it up and hold it out of the way and say, no, you have to wait.
Right.
It will go faster if you wait. And by the time I left, I would have to tell her 4 or 5 times to wait, and eventually she would. But yeah, and I was just like, this is ridiculous. You're making it harder for me to feed you. If you want to get fed, stay out of my way and let me do it, you know.
You don't want to put
So,
one little scoop on the forehead? I'm
uh,
teasing.
yeah, well, no, I actually have, I've had cats that did that before that ended up with, yeah, food on their
Right.
foreheads. But yeah, so she's got lots of anxieties around food. But yeah, so I'm going to give this information to my daughter and encourage
Sure.
her to get in touch with you because and and the vets are just kind of like, well, I guess she's just really anxious and we could put her on Prozac or something. And my daughter's like, no, I don't really think that's a great idea.
Vets have a great place in our society. I mean, there's definitely things they can do, but sometimes I'm kind of like, they go at it for the more scientific or like a pill will fix it. And I'm not great really with animals on medication. I mean, there's times when they might need it, but I don't really feel like, like people, we probably shouldn't have, people on Prozac for the rest of their lives if they don't really need it. If you can figure out other ways to deal with that anxiety, it's better all the way around. And, just giving the pill doesn't mean that the situation fixed or changed. And eventually you can get to a dosage level where it doesn't work anymore anyway. So
Yeah.
finding out that reason is better.
Well, having worked so long with young children, I frequently observed that the behavior that the parent was consulting me and being concerned about was actually being reinforced by the parent. And
Ah,
putting, medicating a child just seems like a really drastic reaction when you just need to educate the adult who's in charge.
yes, yes.
So,
It's like it's training. Sometimes I say, well, like, people want to change their animal behavior. I'm like, I'm really training the person. I think you were training parents too. And
yeah, oh yeah.
they don't see that. And change of their
Mhm.
own behavior is so much harder to
Mhm.
do. If they're like, oh, the kid has to make all the changes, it makes it easier. They're doing a little bit less, but it's not really helping the child. So good job on trying to help them and work around and figure it out.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, it's a little harder to figure
Yeah.
out how to help your animals because um
They
they
can't give you the
don't speak
verbal
the same
feedback.
language. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Laura, I have to tell you, I had a kitten that was the she was born under my deck,
Mhm.
and and then her mother abandoned her. Her mother got pregnant. She had one litter under my deck and then immediately had this one little kitten, or maybe she had more than one and they died under my deck. I don't know, but only one. And she immediately abandoned that little kitten. And I'm not a cat person. I don't really, I didn't care for cats. I kind of do now a little more, but she was all alone living under my deck, and I just assumed, not knowing anything about cats, well, it will go find a mouse or a lizard or something and it'll go away. And it didn't. And then it started crying and crying and crying. Well, I didn't know this, but she was hungry. I didn't know baby kittens, like tiny little weeks old kittens, couldn't go find their own food. And cat the point I'm getting to is that cat taught me a lot. The mothers teach them how to do this. So she not only was not being fed, she wasn't being trained, and she was literally starving. And if it wasn't for my granddaughter to say, but can we just feed her? And I thought, no, I don't want to feed it because I want it to go find a mouse and go away. This abandoned little kitten who had no contact with humans started quietly sneaking out and climbing up, like barely, she was so tiny, climbing up the stairs, and she would come up behind me and let out a little mew, like, will you be my mother? I need a mother. I need somebody to care for me. So I ended up taking her in, took her to a vet before I brought her in the house, made her a house cat, got her the tree, did everything, did all the research. And then I didn't really know how to care for a cat. And so I contacted Cat, and she helped me a lot. She helped train me, first of all, like she said, she trained me. But also she talked to Timber and the kitten and started saying, your mom doesn't really know about this and she doesn't understand this and she's afraid when you do this or whatever it might be. So I just want to let you know, to tell your daughter that Cat really did help me a lot. And I noticed almost instantly, because she would jump out at me. She was playing, she loved to play hide and seek, and she would jump out at me and I would get scared and I would freeze. So Cat just talked to her and said, I know you think it's fun, and this is just you developing, because if you had litter mates, you'd be doing this with each other. But your mom is not your litter mate and you're scaring her. She doesn't understand. So can you maybe be a little more gentle with her? So Kat had this whole conversation with her. And, she did. She stopped just like kind of barreling at me. So I just wanted to pass that on to your daughter because they were feral cats and she really helped.
I mean, we always had cats in the house when my daughter was growing up, so cat behavior. And this little kitten, the colony that she came from was living in a Lowe's garden center, which was in the same shopping center with a pizza restaurant. And the feral cats would go to the dumpster behind the pizza place. So anytime the cat smells pizza or melted cheese, she goes crazy. So she learned, really tiny. But she was actually removed from the colony because she kept going into the parking lot and seeking out contact with people. And they were afraid that she was going to get run over. So this rescue group took her out, and then someone gave her to my daughter and said, would you please take her? So she did. And but yeah, but you just, it's kind of a hard way to start a life. So yeah.
No,
Okay,
and
thank
it's
you.
I think our animals have really amazing ways of dealing with a lot of things. I've seen some amazing instances where our animals come out of a situation that we look at and we're like, oh, that's horrific. I mean, it's like we don't even know how you survived that part of it to come out of it. And it's like a lot of times they're resilient, they're forgiving once they can get into that forever home. I've also seen some animals who have worked their ways through bad situations because it's like they get to see the bigger picture somehow, and they knew, okay, if I go through this bad experience, I can get to a person who can love me and who can keep me forever. And and so sometimes they go through it. Sometimes I think the experiences are actually to help teach vets how to do something. So, an animal might go through a situation where there is a way to save it, but the vet's never done it, but now they've been presented, or the person has other ideas. And it's like, okay, we're not just going to put this animal to sleep. We're going to do these medications, or we're going to do this. And so I think it helps teach sometimes the vets or caretakers in the Humane Society situations how to work with special needs, or how to do something different, how to take that and turn a situation around so that we can have a better positive outcome. And so I love things like that. I really feel like we have that chance to do that. And people who will work with their animals, who have that patience and who want to do it, are amazing. I love people like you guys. So.
All right. Well, thank you. Okay.
Okay. Let's see. I think that looks like it's all the questions, and that's everything I've got. Alice, can I turn this back to you? And thank you everybody for coming in tonight and listening to me. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Kat.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate you. I just marvel every single time you come on board, and I can't tell you how much I look forward to seeing you again. So
Well, thank you,
I
Alice.
really thank you. I really thank you for this. And I was so thrilled when Donna said, "Oh, I have a cat communicator. I mean, I have a animal communicator." So
Right.
anyway, all right. Well, we thank you again, and we will be very grateful for our presentation that we're going to look forward to next year from you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.